What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're back with another video from Andy. Andy and I have both been doing a bunch of drafts. So Andy, welcome back into the channel, buddy.
Thanks, man. It is the best time of year. Loving how most of my teams are looking right now. Super excited for week one. Oh, it's time.
It's time, dude. I mean, college football is even starting. I'm excited to watch a little bit of that this weekend. But for today's topic, we're going to be going over 5 breakout players for Dynasty mostly, but you could apply this advice to redraft. I would say in general, Andy and I are on board with at least taking these guys at their ADP, if not slightly above. So to get this kicked off, Andy's going to give us his first breakout pick for the 2024 season. Andy, who we got?
So we're starting off with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who was the wide receiver 1 in his class just last year. And, you know, a lot of people, including us, I think, thought he would get off to a slow start because he's behind DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and a Pete Carroll offense that really wants to run the football. And he didn't. I mean, the Seahawks were last in terms of pace of play, last in number of plays run, and they struggled finding ways to get him the ball. I think something like over 20% of his targets were behind the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, he showed some flashes of why he was the first wide receiver off the board. I mean, I was there at that Thanksgiving game. My wife's a big Seahawks fan when they had that amazing third down catch where he like spun around and one hand dove and grabbed it. And he's put on tape reasons why, you know, he can be the guy. And, you know, Tyler Lockett's coming into, he's going to be 32 next month. We've got a new offensive coordinator, you know, bringing in a whole new system. And if they can find better ways to give him the ball, because he is a good route runner, and a reception perception had good numbers on him when he was running his routes, great at finding space zone, good at getting separation. And, you know, he's just been falling down these dynasty wide receiver ranks. And, you know, this is a guy who can definitely score a lot more points than he was able to last year, just with an increase in opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if you even are going to go off redraft ADP, he was going higher last season than he is this year, when arguably his opportunity is way better this season. Like you said, new offensive coordinator. Not only is Tyler Lockett getting up there in age, but he's banged up. He may not even start the season. We're kind of iffy to see if Tyler Lockett even starts this season. And to really double down on Andy talking about the new offensive coordinator, that can really matter. We kind of had grown accustomed to what the Seattle offense was going to look like the past couple years, with DK Metcalf being the number 1 target and them really running the ball a lot. But the guy coming over from Washington ran 3 wide, Polk, McMillan, Odunze obviously at Washington. And I'm not saying that it's going to play out this way, but there is not a 100% chance that DK Metcalf just remains the number 1 target here. There's a chance JSN is just a better player than DK Metcalf and he becomes the number 1 target, or it's more of a 50-50 split. And like Andy was saying here, JSN's going, we just took him in the 9th round in a draft the other day, and DK goes in the 4th, 5th round. And I think you could make an argument at the end of the season that they both should have been going in the 6th, maybe. And you're getting a 3-round jump or something on JSN, and he just has a chance to really cement himself. I had an awesome comment in my YouTube the other day. I wish I could pull this up to call this dude out, or maybe it was even on TikTok, but the dude was like, all over the JSN take, man. Like, dude, they're cutting DK next year. And it's like, well, I don't know if they're cutting him, but it's like, it's possible. Like, this could be a year that things kind of switch around in that Seattle offense. So my first breakout I'm going to talk about today is going to be George Pickens, and talk about a change to the offense that I think could really just jumpstart Pickens. I think it's twofold here. Kenny Pickett leaving, a guy who I liked Kenny Pickett kind of coming in as a late 1st-round pick in Dynasty a couple years ago, but he just really didn't show much. So when it comes down to it, Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields, I think have just shown more ability to get a wide receiver involved. Even though we don't love the guys, they are better than Kenny Pickett. And I also think Deontay Johnson leaving is a big deal for George Pickens this year. I mean, last year when Deontay Johnson was out, Pickens had much more upside to his game. He had a couple top 5 wide receiver weeks in a stretch without Deontay Johnson. And that's how I view George Pickens. I don't view him as this Amon-Ra type where he's going to get you 8 catches every week and be this PPR monster. I view him more as like a Mike Evans, where this dude, if he takes this next step forward, he could be a perennial top 18 guy with, yes, some spike weeks, but a lot of game winning and like matchup altering weeks because he's a big play dude who can go up and get the ball. And he actually breaks a lot more big plays than you would think for a contested catch guy. He's actually pretty dang good after the catch as well.
No, for sure. Yeah. An interesting stat on him is, and I think the thing with consistency is he went down on first contact 58% of the time, which isn't great. But then he broke 2 or more tackles 18% of the time, which is phenomenal. So it's like he's either like catches the ball, it's right there contested and going down, or you get him a little bit of space and he's making everybody miss and housing that thing. So he definitely has the physical tools to be an elite wide receiver for fantasy.
And really, one of the most important things to me to look for in general with guys who have a chance to break out is just the availability of them to be the number one option on their team. And George Pickens has the best chance to be just this solo monster on the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. So, Andy, walk us through your next one, coming in with a rookie running back for us.
Yeah, so this was a little funky. There was a lot of hype before the draft with Trey Benson, and it seems to have kind of died down. I haven't heard a lot of rumblings about him recently. And I think part of it is, going to the Cardinals, which is a great offense, but they do have James Conner, who had his best year by far last year. And I don't necessarily expect him to be stealing the job. I mean, James Conner was 3rd in the NFL in yards after contact, 7th in win percent, which is this weird stat where it combines yards after contact, forced tackles missed, like jukes, and then just divided by carries. So like how good were they with each opportunity of making people miss, either running them over or juking them. So he was an elite running back last year, but this year he's turning 29. And the big problem with James Conner is he has never played a full season. The most when he's been a starter has been 13 games. He's had a couple years with 10 games, 9 games. So I don't usually like to project injury on somebody, but if you have a player who's coming into their 7th, 8th, or 9th season and have never played a full season, at this point, you kind of got to expect him to miss some games. And Trey Benson was the second running back taken in the draft. He's 218 pounds, ran a 4.39 40. He has an elite athletic profile, a 9.77 RAS score. That's top 2% of all running backs drafted since 84. So I think when he gets his opportunity that he's going to be able to really shine. We project this to be a good offense. As soon as Kyler came back last year, it was a top 10 offense, and he's got all the physical tools to dominate. So I think he's somebody that, I sneaky like at the end of, round 10, 11 in redraft. And then, for Dynasty, I feel like James Conner is going to get the start, and whoever's holding Trey Benson might be like, yeah, I don't know. He can't beat out James Conner. I don't know. And as soon as he gets that opportunity, I don't know if he's going to necessarily give it back to Conner.
Yeah, you may have a tiny window to try and trade for Trey Benson when the season starts. If the Trey Benson owner thought that Trey Benson was just going to immediately come in and be the starter or immediately be involved, I think it may take a little bit. But just like Andy was saying, he's going to get a chance to have a audition to be the feature back in this offense. James Conner is going to miss a couple weeks this season. We don't know when it's going to be. But when that day comes, Trey Benson's going to get an audition. And yeah, it might be a little risky, but we all think he's probably going to perform very well. And then his value is going to skyrocket, and you're probably going to have no chance at acquiring Trey Benson once we see what he could be for the Cardinals offense. So my next breakout for this week, this is going to be the lowest guy on the list. It's the riskiest one, but it's something that throughout this summer, I just think there's a chance that Will Levis really elevates himself into more of that quote unquote starting dynasty quarterback 2 kind of conversation. Whereas right now, he's more of like a bench dynasty quarterback. I'm not projecting this guy to go in the first round of dynasty drafts next year or be a top 12 dynasty QB. I totally understand that. But there's a lot of things in this Titans offense this summer that I think are positives for Will Levis that are kind of signs that he has a chance to break out and be a more prolific passer than he was last year or where he's being projected to go. The biggest change for that is just going to be the head coaching change. I loved Mike Vrabel as a coach for the Titans winning football games, but I think Callahan coming over from the Bengals is going to be more fun for the offense and a more fantasy passing friendly system. Not only are they going to pass the ball more, Titans have been bottom 5 in pass rate the past couple years under Vrabel. Bengals have been top 5 in pass rate under Callahan as the OC. And not only was that with Joe Burrow, that held true last year when Browning was the quarterback. And that's the part of that statistic that I find the most interesting, is that it would be easy to just kind of play that stat off as a Joe Burrow thing. But he held true to that even when Jake Browning was under center. Also, they obviously have Hopkins. They add Calvin Ridley. They add Tyler Boyd. They add an offensive lineman. They target Tony Pollard to complement Tajay Spears instead of a bruising back. I think there's a lot of signs pointing towards the Titans passing more this season, which gives Will Levis a good chance, or a better chance than he had coming into the offseason, to break out as QB. You know, he's going in the 20s right now. I think he could be Dynasty QB 16 at the end of the season if he has a good year and it looks like he's going to play out the rest of that contract in this offense under Callahan.
Yeah, I think, adding all those weapons around him, getting Ridley, keeping Hopkins, and then even just Tyler Boyd as a wide receiver 3, who's a fine wide receiver 3. And losing Derrick Henry, I mean, the identity of this offense is not going to be a run the ball offense. It's going to be a passing. So he's definitely going to have the opportunity. And, as a rookie, he had some great flashes. I think, was it his first game where he was just throwing it to DeAndre Hopkins all over the field and looked amazing? And, if he can play like that more consistently, then he can be an absolute, a great quarterback too, like you're saying.
So the last breakout for our video today, Andy's going to go over one of my favorite guys as well, but Jayden Reed, dude, what about Jayden Reed makes you think he can break out again? Kind of. I mean, he had a great season last year as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of the funny thing is, maybe call it a homer take. Obviously, the Chiefs head behind me, but I'm so in on this Packers offense. They were 14th in passing yards last year, 3rd in passing touchdowns, really came on strong at the end of the season with a bunch of second-year guys, rookies, and Jordan Love's first time starting. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in what was already a great passing offense. And, there's a case for all these Packers wide receivers. But, towards the end of last year, Jayden Reed was wide receiver 26 on Keep Trade Cut, and now he's all the way down to wide receiver 36. And he finished last year as the wide receiver 23 overall. I think there's, any one of these Packers guys could explode, but I think Reed has the best bet. He is the most well-rounded out of the entire group. And as a rookie, he had 10 touchdowns last year. So here are the 8 other players who've had 10 touchdowns since 1999, which is Jordan Addison, Jamar Chase Claypool, not great, Calvin Ridley, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, Mike Williams. All phenomenal fantasy guys. Some guys who had 9, Michael Thomas, A.J. Brown, and then Christian Watson. So we'll see. But, reception perception has him charted as the best Packers wide receiver. He was great against man, great against zone. He led the Packers in yak, in yards per game, in getting open. They sometimes use him in the run game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. So he is their most complete guy who was a rookie last year. If he can take even just a little step forward in year 2 and be the number 1 on this offense, then, I mean, he can explode. And, last year, wide receiver 23, I feel like one of these guys could sneak into the top 12, and my bet would be on Jayden Reed.
Yeah, and I mean for Jayden Reed, for me, like I think it's just pretty simple. Whereas, like I think for the next 5 to 7 years, Jayden Reed is going to finish as a better wide receiver than he's going to be ranked on Keep Trade Cut, Fantasy Pros Dynasty rankings, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that just screams like an undervalued player to me, right? Like you're going to be drafting him as a wide receiver 3, and he's going to perform as a wide receiver 2. And yeah, it may not be this, oh my God, he's Justin Jefferson. But at the end of the season, Jayden Reed is your wide receiver 3 on any of your teams. He's going to perform, and he's just the best all-around receiver on the Packers for me as well. But thank you guys for tuning in today to 5 breakout guys to go target in your league. Stoked to have Andy on again before the season starts. If you have a chance, make sure comment below what you think about our takes, subscribe, like the video. Everything helps. But Andy, thank you for coming on, buddy.
Dude, thanks for having me.
And you guys have a good season. We're going to keep coming at you with more videos. So appreciate you guys.